PokeClass is sponsored by CollectorsCash.com, who are now stocking your brand new set, Dragons Exalted, at very competitive prices. Whether you want to kickstart your collection with a sealed box, or want those competitive singles for a tournament, Collectors Cash should be your first stop. Check out www.collectorscash.com after the show for all of your competitive Pokemon TCG needs. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 84 of PokeClass. Today we're going to be paying homage to the past weekend where the World Championships took place. I won't go over the last chance qualifiers as I covered all the happenings from there in episode 83. The last chance qualifiers were really interesting, and I'll go over some of the rumours that came to light during last week's episode, as some of them were finally answered. We've got the top 16 decks to look over, and then we'll take a look at how this is going to affect our new format, so let's get to it. So as all of you know, Worlds 2012 was last weekend in Hawaii and is one of the most covered events of the year, and it's always exciting to see many great players battling out for the top spot of becoming the year's world champion. Now where we left off last week was after the last chance qualifiers, where Darkrai did completely dominate the tournament, taking the majority of the 8 invites given out to play in the following day, and this did turn out to be very similar in the actual tournament. Let's have a look at the top 16 decks of Worlds 2012, and as you can see, Darkrai did completely dominate. We've seen Darkrai dominate the Battle Rose tournaments leading up to the World Championships, but a lot of players put that down to experimentation with the new cards from the new sets and wanting to see Darkrai in play. But in the build up to Worlds, various lists were developed and took the format by storm at the weekend. Darkrai was easily the most played deck at the event, and this can be seen by the top 16 finishers being taken by 10 Darkrai variants and an 11th deck still featuring the card. I have split up the Darkrai variants into which kind of variant they were, as I feel that it's definitely important, as a lot of Darkrai builds have developed over the past few months, with Darkrai Mewtwo coming out on top at Worlds. The deck pretty much puts 2 of the best and most versatile attackers in the game into one deck, and they work together pretty well, especially when Shaman was in the format to quickly switch energy around and get huge KOs on pretty much any Pokemon. Only 2 variants in the top 16 ran a Terrakion tech, and even though that is amazing in a field full of Darkrai, the variants with Terrakion aren't going to be as consistent as the straight Darkrai and Darkrai Mewtwo variants, possibly costing them crucial games on their way up to the cut. As for the rest of the top 16 decks, we saw 3 CMT appearing, which is a quite good play in a field full of Darkrai Mewtwo, as you could take the return KOs on Mewtwo's, and most variants I have seen that were played at Worlds did include 1 or 2 Terrakions for the Darkrai part, which means you're covering both major threats of the tournament. CMT was the easiest deck to fit Terrakion in, as it's a lot more versatile with its energy attachments and can more importantly spring Terrakions out of nowhere, where in other situations you may be able to see one coming if you're a Darkrai player. Zekrom Eels also made a single showing in Cut, and I'm guessing that the amount of speed Darkrai and Mewtwo variants of Darkrai were just too fast for the Lightning toolbox. Terrakion Mewtwo, what would have seemed to be a perfect play for the day, only just squeezed in at 16th place, with high amounts of EV-lighted Darkrai's still giving it a run for its money. The last and probably most interesting deck would be the Excelgor Vileplume deck, another deck featuring Darkrai, but it's the only Vileplume deck that made a true showing at the tournament. A fair few people were running this deck, but it just couldn't cut it against the speed of straight Darkrai's and possible donks with all those Mewtwo's running around. As we moved on to the top 8, there were 7 Darkrai decks and a single CMT left in the tournament, which shows how much of a hold Darkrai had on the format, and the top 4 were all Darkrai variants, although they were all slightly different builds. I was talking earlier about how Terrakion can be incredibly inconsistent when it wants to be, but when you get it working game after game, it really works wonders, and we saw the same thing happen here. The top 4 were all Darkrai variants, but with only one of them including the Terrakion tech, which made it all the way to the finals and eventually took down another Darkrai variant to be crowned the world champion. So overall, Darkrai did what it did best, stayed consistent and took on even some very difficult matchups to create a mirror match fest when we hit the top 4, and in the end, Terrakion did make the difference in the final games. One of the great things about these World Championships was that even if you didn't get to go, you could watch the most anticipated match of the year play out live on stream thanks to GameSpot. They added crazy camera angles, fancy graphics and some questionable commentary, but it is definitely a step in the right direction for the game as a whole. If you missed the stream and the games, then I cut up the video into 3 separate games and uploaded them a couple of days ago with my own commentary. You can check them out at the end of the episode if you missed out on the incredible games that were played. One last big thing about Worlds that I covered last week were the rumours about the location of Worlds 2013, as it wasn't announced as per tradition along with the Worlds promo cards when they were given out. However, as predicted, the location was announced at the closing ceremony and is going to be held in Vancouver in Canada at the Vancouver Convention Centre from the 9th to the 11th of August 2013. Not only is this the first time in a while that the San Diego-Hawaii split has been broken, but it is also the first time since 2004 that the Hilton Hotel has not been the venue. This is a big thing for the game as Worlds are starting to travel around the globe, essentially growing the game even further, which can never be a bad thing. So Worlds is now in the past and a new season is on the horizon, and the new format has already begun, with players frantically building decks for Autumn Battle Roads in September. So let's quickly look at what these Worlds results mean for the format ahead. Obviously, we will be in a completely new format, black and white onwards, but some decks still live on even with the shift in available cards, and of course, Darkrai is still going to be around, especially after its performance at Worlds. If you are a regular viewer of my channel, you would have already seen an array of deck analysis focused on the big new decks of the upcoming format, and decks featuring Darkrai and Electric are still going to be around and are still going to be good. Darkrai gains Hydreigon and Electric does what it always has done, just with some new attackers at its disposal such as Rayquaza EX among others. Worlds just showed how versatile Darkrai can be in any variant of the deck, with its free retreat and trainer that can drag extra energy attachments from the discard pile. This versatility and speed will live on in the new format, and I'm sure it'll be one of those first go-to decks in all players' testing arsenal, with its incredibly popular performance at Worlds. The disappointing showing of Eels at Worlds may impact people's opinions on how it can deal with Darkrai at high-level tournaments, but since Worlds is in a different format, new cards come into the equation which can tip the results of a Worlds deck performance for the future. And that is your Pokemon World Championships 2012 all wrapped up for you. Apologies if you were looking for some more deck analysis from the new format, those will return next week, starting again with some under the radar decks you may want to take for a spin when Battle Roads come around. If we take anything from Worlds though, I think the biggest thing is that the coverage was the best it has ever been since Pokemon Organized Play began. We have people like the Top Cut recording and narrating matches live on location for us to watch the best players in the game duke it out, as well as setting up their own invitation-only exclusive tournament after Worlds has concluded. These guys work along with various other YouTube channels spreading the word of the game, have led to Pokemon organising their own official live stream of the finals. There may be a long way to go before it becomes frequent as we'd like for other events, but it's a huge step in the right direction. So thank you for watching this week's episode of PokeClass. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you check out the finals games I posted this week if you missed out on the stream last weekend. Have a great week everyone, and look forward to the return of new format Rogues next week.